So, this video is designed in order to help you understand how to create charts using Google Sheets. Now, in order to set this up, you have to have two things in mind. First of all, it's got to be in two columns. Those columns, when you set them up, the first column is going to be your independent variable. The second column is going to be your dependent. All right, remember the independent variable is your x-axis, and your dependent variable is your y-axis. Now notice that you have these numbers, and they're just numbers. There cannot be any letters, units, or anything like that in these fields. At the top, we have the titles of those columns, all right? And those titles will actually become the labels for the axes on our chart. So once I have all that set up, I go and I highlight just those two columns, all right? I stretch and highlight just those two columns, as you can see, including the two titles. And then I go up to Insert, and then I insert the chart. Now, here is the chart, but the chart alone is not often good enough in order to show us what the relationships are. But if you notice, this is a scattergram, which means I have all these points set out. And I have, again, the y-axis, the mass, that is my dependent variable, and the volume, which was the x-axis. Over here, this is my independent variable. Now, in order to customize, I go to the chart editor, I click Customize, and then I go down to Series, and then I scroll down to Trend Line. Now, this will give me my best fit line of all the data. Now, in order to find the slope of that line, I then scroll down a little bit more, and I go to Label, and instead of None, I have Use Equation. And up here now is the equation for that line. Y, which is the y-axis, is equal to the slope times x plus b, which is the y-intercept, okay? Now, if you look at this, the only thing that really matters is the slope. In this case, the slope is 1.13, and the slope would be the rise over run, so the mass over volume. In this case, mass over volume is the density. Therefore, that slope would tell me what the density was, the average density. All right, so that is one type. Let me show you another example. And I'm going to use this data over here. And I'm going to, again, use just the top, just these two columns. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to go to Insert Chart. And here's this. Now, again, I'm going to have the trend line. So I'm going to go to Customize, Series. I'm going to insert the trend line. Now, if you notice, this set of data doesn't really match this trend line. This trend line indicates that it's a linear relationship, but the dots really don't line up at all. So instead, I want to use the appropriate relationship. So I go over here to Type. Instead of linear, I'm going to go down to Power Series. And if you notice, that actually goes through, that's the best fit curve. All right, so if it's some sort of exponential relationship where there's a curve, I use Power Series as the type instead of linear. And I still go down to Label and say Use Equation. Now, if you notice, the equation involves an exponent. So the y is equal to a certain number x raised to the power of an exponent. In this case, the exponent is negative 0.98. So sometimes you need to figure out what the equation of that line is to figure out the actual relationship. And since that is a negative exponent, that tells me that the x and y have an inverse relationship. All right, it's an inverse relationship if there's a negative exponent. I hope you found that this was useful for you.